Well, good afternoon. Well, it is a good afternoon, folks. Now, before we start, I just want to have a quick show of hands. We've had a lot of discussions today about both marketing issues and IT and techie stuff and data stuff has crept in as well. So, quick show of hands about the differences between marketing and technology in data. So, those of you who would consider yourself in the marketing camp, show your hand. Yep, there's one or two. And those of you who put yourself in the IT data camp. Ooh, a few have crept in there. Well, that's good. Well, I just was squirting through my Twitter account this morning, and something popped up, which was a quote from the CMO of Pernod Ricard. And he was giving the keynote address at the Global Marketer Conference in Sydney. I bet we all wish we were there rather than here. But and one of the quotes his quote, which is in the article, and it's a very good article. It said, "In the age of big data, successful marketeers will need to be an equal measure of madmen, method men, and math men, and women, of course." But I thought this was a great quote because we're now having to deal with far more information, far more data, but actually understand the technology and understand some of the issues. Now, we're all, to a greater or lesser extent, closet people watchers. We love to know about things, about people, what they do. You know, just look at the success of a number of TV programs, the Big Brother franchise, etc., all the reality TV programs, to know that we really do like to find out about people. And there is the data out there, but it's complicated. And as marketeers, you actually have to know I'm sorry about this, but some of the technology and the technology issues to be able to use that data and put it into context. And it's great that I think virtually every presenter today has used that word. And putting stuff in context is so vitally important. So social, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, social data, is hugely important. It's mainstream. Now, even before I'd created this slide a couple of months ago, it was wrong. You know, even before, I've spoken one of these points, it's changed. The volume of data has increased, and is the way in which we communicate between ourselves and to organizations, and the way organizations communicate to us now is via social. Globally, that is the baseline. You know, 1 in 4 people on the planet have a social profile, 25% of all time online, more than 75,000 items per second of public social data. So huge volumes of data. And it's coming from a mass of different blog sites, Twitter, posting sites, and also not only just public sites, but also internally. More and more organizations are now having internal social sites like Yammer, Chatter, that are capturing information and exchanging information. And as I said, we are closet people watchers. We love to listen. But actually, that's not very useful, especially with huge volumes of data. Start automating those processes. But for those of you who don't know, this is what social data looks like. And actually, it's a number of things. Firstly, it is big. It's monstrously big. You know, if you actually have a look at the Twitter fire hose, and we're one of the only 2 publicly available sources of Twitter globally, this is what it's like. It's text. It's horrible. It's messy. It's complicated. It's horrendously fast. It's massive. And as I said, it's text. And we don't like text in the IT industry. It's difficult to analyze, especially unstructured data. So that's what social actually is. But what we want to convert it to, so that we can actually act on it, that we can make it contextualized, is that we need to make it relevant. We need to make it relevant not just in general terms, but to our specific business case or business cases. And those change possibly very rapidly. We need to enrich that data, because a lot of it is actually rubbish and we need to get rid of it. But we also need to be able to integrate that into our own internal systems within our organizations and to maximize the benefit there. We need to make it timely as well. The whole reason for social data is that it's real time. And so therefore it's ridiculous to get real-time data and then analyze it, produce reports, have meetings about the reports, and finally make a decision 2 weeks later. Because by the time that decision's been made, the bus has already departed long ago. So you need to make your processes also timely. And you need to convert this text into data. Data so that you can analyze it and automate some of your procedures. So some of the key challenges, and many of you will already be using social data in your organizations and know a lot of use cases for social data. But what we're seeing is that the vast majority of social data is used for listening, for monitoring social sites, monitoring information. And many large organizations don't just have one or two of these systems, they will have dozens of different monitoring sites or solutions within their organization. And frequently these social apps are actually disconnected one from the other. So a specific department, whether that's customer service or marketing or sales, will have a social monitoring capability, but there might be social monitoring for each product line even, or by country, or by region, or by language. So what we're seeing is a very much unconnected organization. And frequently, this social information is actually disconnected from the business data, from the data that is being created and collated from the web, from other operational systems within organizations. And frequently also, the monitoring and analyzing of this social data actually lacks a lot of flexibility. As I said, this data is real time and things change massively. What people are talking about, what they're talking about your organization, what interests them, what things are going on in the world. And so to be able to analyze that, you need to have the flexibility and control of these analytical and operational systems which are using your social data. And did I mention social data is unstructured and it's difficult to manage. It's horrible, it's big, and the expertise you need frequently doesn't already exist in your organization, and it's quite a rare commodity. So some of the use cases, and I'm not going to go into huge detail of any of these, but don't think of social as purely just a way of listening to, 14-year-olds telling you what TV programs or boy bands they're interested in. This is a global communication channel. It is far more used by certain age groups than you would expect. And also, we're talking about all social data, not just the Twitter feed, but Facebook and blogs, posts, boards, etc., etc. So lots of different types of social data and more actually being created on a daily basis, and many are focused at specific business areas or languages or interests. So social data used a lot, obviously, in the marketing area for brand reputation, monitoring, and sentiment. So actually understanding what your audience is actually thinking about your brand and about your organization. Lots of things happen out there in the world which can influence that view of your brand, and you need to be on top of it, not just waiting to react to things, but actually monitoring and be able to be proactive. Competitive analysis. You need to find out lots about, obviously, your market and your competitors, not just what they say, but what your customers and their customers are saying about their product. Campaign measurement, sales activities, service, Increasingly, organizations are moving from purely having customer call centers to actually reducing the number quite radically and focusing their customer service and support through using social as their key way of actually communicating with their audience. How often, if something goes wrong or goes right, you'll go immediately onto Twitter or your favorite social site and have a rant or a rave or a like or a dislike. Frequently, we don't actually phone them up, the actual organization up. Maybe if you think they can do something, you might, but more often than not, you'll just go on Twitter and blitz that for a few minutes, and it makes us feel all the more better for that. And also the ability to get information on your products and services. Without actually having to do formalized market research, the social channels are a great source of information for crowdsourcing information about your products and services, frequently in areas you'd never actually thought about, and that's vitally important. So social can be used in a huge number of different areas, not just marketing, but throughout your organization, and to also reduce your infrastructure costs in many cases. So I've said social is data rich. Sorry, I'm going to go into teacher mode now. So a single tweet, 140 characters. But in fact, of that 140 characters, we've got another 120 items of metadata potentially connected to that single tweet. Now, metadata being data about the data. So additional information that you can search on, that you can filter on. And for that single tweet, you can actually augment it or add enrichments, so extract information from other sources to add to that single tweet. Another 150 are actually possible. So that's 270 fields that you can start analyzing and filtering on and using for analytical purposes, even before you've actually got to the text within the tweet. So massive information actually in just something as simple as 140 characters. So huge benefit to your organization. But a lot of that information is actually rubbish. You know, we aren't interested in a huge amount of social information. What we need to do is make it, we need to add meaning to those posts, those blogs, those tweets, etc. And we need to add enrichment. So we need to add demographic information. We need to add links, and I'll use that as an example in a minute. Entity extraction, sentiment. Sentiment's been mentioned previously, but sentiment, you know, again, it's a very difficult area to analyze text, but to find out, does the person, is this a good or a bad comment that they're making? We may want to know more about the person actually posting this information, things such as their gender and things like where are they actually based or where do they live. So language detection becomes important. Topic detection, again, identifying specific issues so that you can really start drilling down, getting a lot of data, filtering that data, and being able to use that in your system. To understand trends and clout scores, actually understanding the person who is posting that message, how valuable is that? How many other people are actually following that individual? You know, how loud is their actual voice in the market? Unfortunately, we're not all equal in social terms. So all those enrichments have to be added to data to make it usable, to put it in context. So let's take an example, and here's a simple tweet, and it's from a gentleman called James Kimmy. Great, we've got that. Most likely, this is a bloke, and the tweet goes, went to Bank of America today and was informed that they don't notarize non-bank documents in California. WTF, I need a new bank. Well, we can read that, and most of us in this room would go, well, I understand the sentiment of that. You know, I can understand that specific tweet. And if I was from The customer care center in Bank of America, there are other banks out there, I have to say. If I was at the customer care center, I would most probably know what to do with that. But if you're getting thousands of those comments, possibly per second, certainly per minute, you haven't got time to do that. So what we need to do is we have to get more information. We need to know the profile of this person, James, that's actually tweeting. You know, is he important? We have to know, is he a customer? We need to start linking that information to our own internal information. And we need to understand the content. So yes, we've read that and we understand it, but if it was in a different language, or possibly if English wasn't our native language, we might not quite understand some of the acronyms used and some of the usage of words. So from the profile, we can actually define, we can understand this from social profiles, and we can add that data to the tweet, and we know that this guy's a journalist. Now immediately, a little light should go off that, oh my God, here's a journalist. If we really screw up with this individual, they most probably have got a greater following than just an ordinary person in the street, and can actually create a lot of bad publicity for us as well. So we have to handle this person a bit more carefully. Now we can actually link that data possibly to our own internal systems, and we can append the customer ID to this specific tweet, and we can identify that this person is both a customer and is also a high-value customer, so we need to be able to respond to that person. So when we route this message through to customer care, possibly we need to let their personal banker know. If they're a high-value customer, they might have a personal banker in the bank or whatever. So we need to be able to respond to that person slightly differently than to possibly a non-customer. And finally, we need to understand the actual context, the information, the content of this message. And it's signifying churn. It's likely that this person, because they've not been able to do what they wanted in the Bank of America, that they will go to another bank. So we have to be able to identify the messages in different ways, whether it's a rant or a rave, or it's just a general, shouting at the world, or whether or not it signifies churn, or it's the likelihood is that it's a query about a sales opportunity, etc. And depending on your specific business case, how your business operates, you can actually identify a number of buckets, if you like, to put these messages in. And this is where machine learning comes in. And a lot of rubbish is talked about machine learning, and many people think this is the savior to everything, that machines are going to take over the world and they're really intelligent. In fact, machine learning is a really dumb system. What it is to identify the specific buckets or tags that you're going to add to a tweet or a blog or a post. And then understanding and writing down why you would put that message in whatever bucket or whichever bucket you want to, or whatever tags you want to add. You then have to get somebody to sit down, most probably in a fairly darkened room, and do this at least a couple of 1,000 times with messages, and going, yeah, that's a rant, that's a rave, that's rubbish, that's a query, that's a rant, oh, that's another rant, or whatever. And they have to go through that process. You then feed that information into your machine learning process, and after a while it goes, I recognize why you've done that. And it will be able to rank the words, the use of words, their proximity, use of language, etc. And then you can feed data through, feed tweets through, and it will automatically add those tags, effectively putting those messages in specific buckets. So you need somebody who's pretty intelligent to actually understand initially what the business process is and what your specific requirements are before you engage with a machine learning process to generate machine learning classifiers. So anyway, in this case, we've been able to identify what the meaning of this specific tweet is, we've added data to it, and we can then route it to whatever process we want. We can route it to sales, we can route it to customer service, we can route it to high-value customer service, we can route it to the bin. It doesn't really matter, lots of different ways, and that's dependent on your own specific use case, your own specific business requirements. So social data is complicated, and even before you can start analyzing it, even before you can start utilizing it, integrating it, and acting on that data, you need to do a number of things. You need to aggregate it, structure it, enrich it, filter it, and then deliver it to an operational system or an analytical platform before you actually start getting value from it. And it's even more complicated than that. You know, aggregate, curate, ingest, structure, normalize, standardize, filter, blah, blah. All those words are actually things that the IT department has to go through before it takes social data and makes it useful for the marketers in the room to actually find value from, that it is contextualized and you can actually start extracting use from it. And that's what we do. DataSift, we take the data from social platforms globally, and we do all those things, and we deliver it out to organizations, both to enterprises and to social tech companies, to either analyze or integrate into operational systems. Now, all those things that you have to do are actually 80% of the time, the money, the heartache of the business process from point A to point B. So it's an awful lot of stuff you need to do before you're actually getting value from that data. So 80% of your investment goes into this data wrangling, even before you in marketing are actually using the data. So this is the only sales slide I've got up here, but aggregating data, and there's an awful lot of it. We actually ingest 1 billion items daily, and that's after we've actually deduped and cleansed the data as well. That's 10,000 blog posts, tweets, board posts, published articles. We've got LexisNexis as a data source as well, with their 400,000 publications. All that data, 10,000 a second. Just think of that. You know, a huge volume of data, and you've no idea which may be useful and which may be of relevance to your specific business. And we then put it through the process of enriching it, of filtering it to filter down to those specific messages that are interesting to your specific business case, categorizing it, adding those tags to it, and then delivering it to you either in real time or to a platform of your choice for analytics. So from the time you actually press the send tweet button on your laptop or your mobile to actually being delivered, we're talking 2 to 5 seconds. So just think of that. That's big data. Real big data in action. I'm not sure how many terabytes we store per day, because we also store historics as well. So you can go back in time and actually look at the Twitter feed from last year or the year before. Not all our sources are, we have full historics, but Twitter we definitely do. So hugely complicated system. But as marketers, you need to know about this. So does it really matter, this techie stuff? Well, let's take just 3 examples of augmentations, which most probably before today you'd have said, well, it's deeply technical, the IT department can do it, I don't need to know. But as marketers, you do need to know. So first of all, link resolution. God, does that sound boring? But increasingly on tweets, you will see that people actually aren't tweeting the specific articles, they're tweeting the links, or normally it's the shortened link as well. So here's a tweet, one of the best articles I've read from Delaney, must read, and there's the shortened link. Now, if you're analyzing that, actually it's not really very much use. You've got a couple of names and the person who tweeted it, but you don't know really what the context of this message was. And you need to then actually resolve the shortened link. You need to go to the website or the final web page. Maybe it's actually several stages. You need to extract that data. You need to then append that to the message, and then you need to be able to analyze it as well. So huge amount of processing, pre-processing that you actually need to extract the insight from that one tweet. And as it says at the bottom, don't try this at home. It's a hugely complicated task. And if you go to your IT departments and ask them to do this, they won't be your friend. So tagging and scoring, I mentioned that about contextualization and putting machine learning. And this is just an example that we did for a couple of the airlines. And again, this is all public information. And we don't do the analytics, but this is some simple analytics, which we actually just bolted on top using Tableau. And what we did was we took the voice of the airline passenger, and we added tags to those, this was actually just Twitter information, added tags to the tweets to say what airline were they traveling with, and what was their issue. Was it baggage, cancellations, check-in, children, lots of different areas that we could actually identify. And then we taught the system, these 2,000 tweets, that goes into the delay bucket, that one goes into the baggage bucket, whatever, and produced a machine learning algorithm, and then was able to use that machine-generated classifier to add these tags to the data, and then we've displayed those. So what this is showing you is that for each of the different airlines, and this was on a specific day, you can see that not only were the issues actually fairly similar, that we can see that delay was obviously a major issue on that day for all the airlines. Service was a big issue, but you can see that there's quite a lot of difference between the different airlines of what people were talking about. So the ability to be able to monitor your competition, to be actually able to understand what is actually happening in real time, not only with your own organization, but also with your competitors, is really very useful. So we added the sentiment analysis, so was baggage good or bad? So again, you can see the breakdown on sentiment for the different issues for the different airlines. So a great dashboard just to be able to follow your own market. And I'm sure this is something which you'd love to be able to do with any of your businesses, to be able to understand what the issues that your customers are interested in, what their sentiment is, and what's happening with your competitors as well on a day-by-day basis. And the final area I'm going to talk about is Asian language tokenization. It used to be called chunking, and I think it's a wonderful phrase. I love Asian language chunking, but it's called tokenization. But the issue is that increasingly we're seeing more and more social data from globally, and two main sites in China, Sina Weibo and Tencent Weibo, and we've now got feeds from Sina Weibo. Sina Weibo actually we switched on Friday. Pre-release information, Tencent Weibo will be coming within a week or two. But a lot of that information is actually in Chinese text. Now, actually, that's not very useful because it's not just translation. A lot of the Chinese characters can mean multiple things. So the translation is important, but also the ability to actually put white space and commas, etc., into the text so that you can start analyzing that data. So one of the major markets for any luxury brand is the Chinese market. And here is a great way of actually getting the voice of the consumer. But just taking a feed in Chinese language actually isn't very useful. You need to be able to do this very techie thing of Asian language tokenization. We can do it for both Chinese and Japanese. So getting to the next stage, my last slide. To make social data useful, it needs to be actionable. Sounds obvious, but it really, really is important to all our businesses, whether we're focusing at enterprises, globally, or SMEs locally. The voice of your audience is always going to be now, firstly, from social media. And it's all changing. I'm sorry, it's not even, this is the new world. It's going to be a new world or newer world tomorrow and the day after. There are new data sources and new formats and new technologies, and the formats are changing on a daily basis. Unfortunately, there's not a standard, here is the social data format. Every single social data format is different, and they change it regularly. So that's a very complicated issue. And also using new technologies, this horrible phrase of big data. There's lots of new expertise which you most probably haven't got in your organization, and is very, very rare. So to get that, expertise is very difficult. And as I said before, it's real-time information. We are talking about, from your customer saying something to you getting it and reacting to it is a matter of a few seconds. And it's not only the ingestion of the data, so not only the technology of getting that data into your platform and analyzing it, which has to be in real time, but also your actions. If I'm talking in real time to an organization, I want them to be able to talk back to me in real time. And how many of your organizations can actually do that? And just reiterating, raw social data, and you can get the API from a number of the data sources, but it's only a very small amount, and it's throttled as well. It's big, it's fast, and it's messy. So data wrangling, actually making this data useful, you actually need a lot of expertise, and I would question whether that's where not only your expertise, but your differentiation actually lies. So traditional analytics and also traditional marketing processes weren't designed for this. So you have to start rethinking some of the marketing processes as well. So I'm here for the next few hours, so more than happy to take questions. I won't take questions now because I think we're going to be, I'll be lynched as lunch is virtually ready. But if you want to find out some more information, DCU is just about to sign a nice contract with DataSift, so, which is great, so you'll get access to this information. Or you can also actually just get started with a free trial account on the DataSift website, so you can get access to all this data and start playing around with it, and that's the link. Also, follow me, and if you link with me on Twitter, you'll get the link to that very good marketing article I mentioned at the beginning. So thank you very much.